They say a white tiger never shows weakness. But Mara watched him die slowly, piece by piece, while his own family sharpened their knives without an heir to carry his name. Her name was Mara Adeyemi, and she became the most dangerous woman in Seoul the day she agreed to carry a monster's child. Kang Tae-hyun was dying, and everyone in the Korean underworld knew it. The leader of the Biko syndicate, the White Tiger himself, had built an empire on blood and steel. For 28 years, his name alone made men bow and rivals retreat. He controlled half of Seoul's underground, owned legitimate businesses worth billions, and commanded an army of loyal soldiers. But none of that mattered now. Brain tumor. Inoperable. The doctors gave him 8 months, maybe less if he was unlucky. His hands trembled when he tried to pour tea. His vision blurred without warning. The man who once moved like a predator now stumbled like prey. And he had no son. 2 daughters. Kang Min-ji, 30. Kang So-yeon, 27. Brilliant, beautiful, ruthless. But in the Biko syndicate, in the world of Korean organized crime, only a blood son could inherit the throne. It was tradition. It was law. It was everything. Without a male heir, the syndicate would fracture. Rival organizations would carve up his territory like butchers over a carcass. Everything he built would vanish like smoke and wind. His wife, Choi Hye-jin, watched him deteriorate with calculating eyes that had stopped pretending warmth decades ago. Their marriage had been strategy from the beginning. Her family, the Choi faction, had needed the Biko syndicate's muscle. Kang Tae-hyun had needed their political connections and legitimate business fronts. 25 years of sleeping in separate rooms, of public appearances and private contempt. Now she was protecting her assets, nothing more. When Kang Tae-hyun became too weak to manage daily tasks alone, Choi Hye-jin made a calculated decision. She needed someone to watch him, feed him, clean up after him while he slowly died. But she was smart. Dangerously smart. She didn't hire a professional caregiver. Those people asked questions, had certifications, belonged to agencies that kept records. She didn't hire from the usual networks that supplied help to wealthy Korean families. Those workers had connections, references, people who would notice if something went wrong. No, Choi Hye-jin went looking for someone desperate. Someone foreign. Someone disposable. That's how she found Mara. Mara Adeyemi was 24 years old, and 3 months ago she'd been selling her grandmother's gold necklace, the last valuable thing she owned, just to pay rent on a room the size of a closet in Itaewon. She'd come to Seoul 18 months earlier with dreams that felt foolish now. Teaching English, they said. Good money, they said. Opportunity, they said. What they didn't say was that her Nigerian university degree meant nothing here. That her visa would expire faster than she could find legitimate work. That the teaching job advertised online was actually 18-hour shifts at a restaurant that paid 1/3 of minimum wage, cash only, no questions asked. When that imploded, she tried everything. Cleaning offices at night until her hands bled. Handing out flyers in Gangnam while men pretended she was invisible or worse, very visible in ways that made her skin crawl. Modeling for photographers who promised portfolios but delivered nothing except uncomfortable situations and broken promises. Seoul was supposed to be her fresh start, her chance to build something real, to send money home and prove everyone wrong. Instead, it became her trap. Then the loan sharks found her. She'd borrowed money for her father's heart surgery back in Lagos. The hospital wouldn't operate without payment up front, full amount, no exceptions. So she went to the only people who would lend to a foreign woman with no collateral, no connections, no leverage. Worst decision of her life. Maybe. Probably. But what choice did she have? Let her father die? Now she owed them 12 million won and the interest was crushing her. They'd already visited her room twice, leaving messages that didn't need words. A knife stuck in her pillow. Her clothes shredded and scattered on the floor. They had people everywhere, they reminded her. Even in Lagos. Even near her family. She had 2 younger sisters still in secondary school. Her mother worked 3 jobs to keep them fed. Everything depended on Mara. Everything always depended on Mara. So when she saw a job posting in a Nigerian community WhatsApp group, she didn't hesitate. Caregiver needed for elderly Korean man. No experience required. Room and board provided. 4,000,000 per month. 4,000,000. That was more than she'd made in 8 months combined. She could pay off the loan sharks. Send money home. Maybe even save enough to fix her visa situation, to breathe, to sleep without nightmares. She replied within seconds. The interview was at a compound in Hanam-dong where Korea's elite lived behind walls that might as well have been castle fortifications. High walls topped with cameras. Security guards at every entrance. The house itself looked like something from a historical drama crossed with modern wealth. Traditional Korean architecture blended with glass and steel and luxury that made her throat tight. A woman in her 50s met her at the door. Choi Hygiene. She looked at Mara the way someone might examine an insect under glass. Clinical. Cold. Assessing value and threat level simultaneously. You speak Korean? She asked in perfect English, her accent crisp and educated. Yes, ma'am. Not fluently, but I understand most things. I've been studying. Choi Hygiene's expression didn't change. Your job is simple. Take care of my husband. Feed him. Help him bathe. Give him his medication on schedule. Keep him comfortable. Her eyes were empty of warmth, of humanity almost. He is very sick. Dying, actually. Terminal. Do you have a problem with that? Mara's stomach twisted, but she shook her head. No, ma'am. I can do it. Good. Choi Hygiene stepped closer, and her voice dropped to something that felt like a threat wrapped in silk. If anything happens to him while you're alone with him, if he falls, if he chokes, if his condition worsens unexpectedly, you will be held personally responsible. Do you understand what I'm saying? A chill ran down Mara's spine. The way she said it felt less like a warning and more like a plan. Like she was already constructing a narrative where Mara would take the blame for something. But Mara needed this job. Her family needed this job. The loan sharks needed their money or her sisters would pay the price. I understand, ma'am. You start tomorrow. Lee Sang-min will show you to your room. A man appeared from the shadows. Massive. Maybe 6'2", built like he'd spent his life breaking things and people. Scars across his knuckles and one that cut through his left eyebrow. This was Lee Sang-min, though Mara didn't know his name yet. He nodded once, silent, and gestured for her to follow. As they walked through the compound, Mara noticed everything. Guards patrolling in pairs. Cameras at every corner. Doors that looked reinforced, heavy, designed to keep people in as much as out. This wasn't just a rich family's home. This was a fortress. This was a place where violence lived. Stay out of trouble, Lee Sang-min said in rough English as he showed her to a small room near the back of the house, away from the main quarters. Do your job. Don't ask questions. Don't talk to people you shouldn't talk to. You'll survive. Then he left, and Mara was alone in a room that felt more like a cell than living quarters. She sat on the narrow bed, her hands shaking, her mind racing. What had she just walked into? What kind of family needed this much security? What kind of dying man required a disposable foreigner to care for him? But she thought about her father recovering in Lagos. About her sister's school fees. About the loan shark's deadline. She thought about survival, the only currency that mattered. She'd figure it out. She had to. Mara met Kang Taehyun the next morning. His bedroom was on the second floor, enormous and filled with expensive furniture that somehow felt cold despite the luxury. He sat in a wheelchair by the window, staring out at the garden below. Morning light cut across his face, showing every line, every shadow, every mark that illness had carved into him. He'd been handsome once. You could still see it in the structure of his face, the strong jaw, the high cheekbones, the way he held himself even in weakness. But the tumor was eating him from the inside out. His skin looked gray, almost translucent. His hands rested on his lap, trembling slightly but constantly. Good morning, sir, Mara said softly in Korean, bowing the way she'd practiced. The way she'd learned was respectful here. He turned to look at her. His eyes were sharp, intelligent, nothing like the rest of his failing body. They assessed her quickly, taking in her dark skin, her braided hair pulled back, the nervousness she was trying desperately to hide. Who are you? His voice was rough, barely above a whisper, but there was authority in it still. Command that hadn't died yet. My name is Mara, sir. Mara Adeyemi. I'm here to help you. He studied her for a long moment, silent, and she felt like he was reading her entire history just from looking. Nigerian? Yes, sir. He turned back to the window. My wife hire you? Yes, sir. Then you're probably here to watch me die. Maybe help it along if the price is right. Mara froze, her heart stopping for a beat. Sir, I would never. A dry, rattling laugh escaped him. Relax. If you were an assassin, you'd be better at hiding your fear. You look like you might vomit any second. He waved a trembling hand dismissively. Just dark humor. You'll need it in this house if you want to keep your sanity. Mara didn't know what to say to that, so she said nothing. She stood there, awkward, waiting for instructions that didn't come. Well, Mara from Nigeria, Kang Tae-hyun said, still staring out the window like he was looking at something far away, something she couldn't see. Let's see if you survive the week. Most people don't last that long around me. One way or another. That first week was hell distilled into 7 days. Nobody told Mara what to do. Nobody trained her. Nobody showed her where anything was or how anything worked. She was just expected to know how to care for a dying man, how to feed him, how to bathe him, how to manage his medications, how to help him move without dropping him or hurting him or making things worse. She failed constantly. She burned his breakfast 3 times because she didn't know how he liked his rice porridge prepared. She gave him his pain medication 2 hours late the second day because she couldn't read the Korean labels properly and was too afraid to ask. When she tried to help him walk to the bathroom on day 3, they both nearly fell because she didn't know how to support his weight, how to balance, how to move together. Any normal employer would have fired her immediately. Any normal family would have called the agency, demanded a replacement, complained about incompetence. But Kang Tae-hyun didn't. When she burned the porridge, he just said, try again. Lower heat. Stir constantly. Don't walk away. When she mixed up his pills and started crying because she thought she'd poisoned him, he told her to write everything down in English if she needed to. So she did. She created a notebook with every medication, every dosage, every time, every instruction. She checked it obsessively, triple-checking before giving him anything. When they almost fell together, he actually laughed, this rough sound that turned into coughing. At least if we both die, my wife can't blame just you. She'll have to split the guilt. Slowly, painfully, Mara learned. She learned how to cook his meals the way he liked them, bland and soft because anything else hurt his stomach. She learned how to help him stand without losing balance, how to read his pain levels and the way his jaw tightened or his breathing changed. She learned how to make him comfortable, how to anticipate what he needed before he asked. And slowly, unexpectedly, something else happened. They started talking. At first it was small things, practical things. The weather is nice today. Thank you, Mara. Did you sleep well? But then the conversations grew longer, deeper, more real. He told her about his business, about how he'd built the Biko syndicate from nothing when he was barely 20 years old. About the enemies he'd made and the battles he'd fought and the empire he'd carved out of violence and will. She listened, not because she had to, but because she was genuinely fascinated. This man had lived an incredible life, even if much of it was soaked in blood and darkness. He asked about Nigeria too, about Lagos, about her family, about why she came to Korea, about her dreams and her failures and the loan sharks who were hunting her. She told him everything. About her father's heart surgery. About her sister's futures depending on her. About the desperate hustle to survive in a foreign country that didn't want her. About feeling invisible and disposable and trapped. You're strong, he said one evening after she'd finished feeding him dinner, after she'd cleaned his face gently and helped him take his evening medications. Stronger than any of them. Them, sir? He gestured vaguely toward the rest of the house, toward his family. My wife. My daughters. They've never struggled for anything real in their lives. They've never fought for survival. They just wait for me to die so they can fight over what's left. Like vultures circling. There was so much bitterness in his voice, so much anger and disappointment. You have 2 daughters, right? Mara asked carefully, not sure if she was overstepping. Yes. 2 daughters. No son. He stared at nothing, his eyes unfocused. In my world, that means I have nothing. When I die, the syndicate dies with me. Everything I built will be torn apart by rivals and former allies. My name will disappear. Like I never existed. Mara didn't know what to say to that kind of pain. Do you believe in legacy, Mara? He asked suddenly, turning to look at her directly. She thought about her father working himself into a heart attack to provide for them. Her mother sacrificing everything so her children could have better lives. Her grandmother's stories about family honor and responsibility. Yes, sir. I do. Kang Taehyun nodded slowly, like she'd confirmed something important. Then you understand why this matters. Why dying without a son feels like dying twice. The daughters hated Mara from the first moment they saw her. Kang Min-ji, the older one, treated her like furniture, like an object that existed only to serve. She'd snap her fingers and point at things without speaking. Close that window. Bring me water. Turn down the music. Never please. Never thank you. Just commands delivered with contempt. Her fiancé, Im Jae-sung, was worse. He'd visit often, whispering in corners with Min-ji, shooting Mara looks that made her skin crawl. She'd seen men like him before, back in Lagos and here in Seoul. Ambitious. Hungry. The type who'd step on anyone to climb higher, who saw people as tools or obstacles, nothing more. One afternoon, Mara was cleaning near the hallway when she heard them talking. She wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but their voices carried. When is the old man finally going to die? Im Jae-sung hissed, his voice sharp with impatience. We've been planning this for 3 years. I'm tired of waiting. Soon, Min-ji replied, her voice cold and empty of any grief. The doctor said 6 months maximum. Maybe less. Once he's gone, we execute the plan. The syndicate will be ours. What about your mother? Your sister? They'll fall in line or they won't. Either way, we'll control everything. The syndicate, the businesses, all of it. We just need him to die. Mara pressed herself against the wall, holding her breath, praying they wouldn't notice her. Her heart pounded so loud she was sure they could hear it. They didn't. They kept talking, discussing their plans like they were discussing a business merger. Cold. Calculated. Waiting for death like it was a scheduled appointment. Kang So-yeon, the younger daughter, wasn't much better. She spent most of her time shopping, posting on social media, talking about all the things she'd buy once her father was dead. Like his death was just an inconvenience she was waiting to get past, a delay before the inheritance party could start. Choi Hyejin barely acknowledged Mara's existence except to criticize. The food was wrong. The room wasn't clean enough. Mara was too slow, too clumsy, too foreign, too everything. But Kang Taehyun noticed everything. One night, after Mara had spent the day running errands for Min-ji and cleaning up after So-yeon's tantrums, he called her into his room. Sit, he said, patting the chair beside his bed. She sat, exhausted beyond words. They're cruel to you. It wasn't a question. She didn't deny it. It's okay, sir. I need this job. I can handle it. It's not okay. His jaw tightened, anger flashing in his eyes. You're the only person in this house who treats me like a human being. Everyone else is just waiting for the funeral so they can start dividing the estate. Tears pricked Mara's eyes, but she blinked them back, refusing to cry in front of him. Kang Tae-hyun reached out slowly, his trembling hand covering hers. The touch was warm, gentle, unexpected. I'm going to protect you, Mara. I promise you that. No matter what happens, no matter how sick I get, I won't let them hurt you. She wanted to believe him. But how could a dying man protect anyone from the vultures already circling? 3 months passed. Mara settled into a brutal routine. Wake at 5. Prepare Kang Tae-hyun's breakfast according to his specific requirements. Help him bathe and dress, which took an hour because everything had to be slow, careful, gentle. Give him his morning medications on precise schedule. Spend the day keeping him comfortable, listening to his stories, managing his pain, cleaning his room. Endure whatever abuse the daughters and Choi Hyejin threw at her, which varied daily but never stopped completely. Fall into bed past midnight, exhausted, only to do it again the next day. Her body ached constantly. Her hands were cracked and raw from cleaning. But she was surviving. She was sending money home. Her father was recovering. Her sisters were staying in school. The loan sharks were getting paid, slowly but consistently. She was making it work. But something was changing between her and Kang Tae-hyun. Something she didn't want to acknowledge, something that scared her more than the loan sharks or the family's cruelty. He looked at her differently now. Not with the cold assessment of an employer, but with something warmer, something deeper. Something that made her heart race in ways she told herself to ignore. He asked personal questions that went beyond casual conversation. Do you have someone waiting for you back in Nigeria? A boyfriend? A man you love? What do you want from life, Mara? Really want, if you could have anything? Are you happy here? With me? She answered honestly because lying felt wrong somehow. No boyfriend. She'd never had time for love, never had the luxury. She wanted to finish university someday, help her family build something stable, maybe open a business. Happy? She didn't know what that word meant anymore. She was surviving. That was enough. One evening, after she'd given him his medication and was preparing to leave for the night, he held on to her hand longer than necessary. Mara, I need to tell you something important. His tone made her stomach drop, made everything feel suddenly heavier. What is it, sir? I'm running out of time. The tumor is growing faster than the doctors predicted. I have maybe 2 months left. 3 if I'm very lucky. Sir, I'm so sorry. Listen to me. His grip tightened with what little strength he had left. I don't want your pity. I want your help with something. Something important. Something that will change everything. She pulled her hand back slowly, fear creeping up her spine. Help with what? Kang Tae-hyun's eyes locked onto hers, intense, desperate, determined. I need a son. The room went silent except for her heartbeat thundering in her ears like drums. Sir, I don't understand what you're saying. Yes, you do. His voice was quiet but firm, absolutely certain. I need a male heir. Someone to carry my blood, my name, my legacy. The Biko Syndicate's law is absolute. Only a biological son can inherit the throne. Without one, everything I built dies with me. Everything. She stood up, her mind spinning, her legs unsteady. You can't be serious right now. I'm completely serious. He didn't break eye contact, didn't look away. I've thought about this for 2 months. Every night. Every day. You're the only person I trust in this entire world. The only person who cares about me as a human being, not as a bank account or a power structure. Your wife. My wife hasn't touched me in 10 years. This marriage was political from the beginning. Always was. Just business. His voice turned bitter, harsh. And she's too old now anyway. It would never work medically. The doctors confirmed it. Then find someone else. There are thousands of women who would. Who would betray me the first chance they got, he interrupted sharply. Who would tell my wife or my daughters or sell the story to my enemies? Who would use the child as leverage against me or against the syndicate? I need someone I can trust absolutely. Someone who understands loyalty and sacrifice. Someone like you. I'm not, her voice broke, tears threatening. I can't just, this is insane. I'm not asking you to love me, Mara. I'm not even asking you to stay after the child is born. I'm asking you to give me one thing before I die. One chance at legacy. One son to carry forward what I built. And what do I get? The words came out harsher than she intended, but she was panicking, her entire world tilting sideways. Kang Taehyun didn't flinch, didn't hesitate. 15 million won immediately. Enough to clear your debts completely and send your family enough money to live comfortably for years. When the child is born, another 70 million won. And protection, permanent protection. My men will make sure nothing happens to you or your family ever. Total, 85 million won. 85 million won. That was life-changing money. That was her mother retiring. That was her sisters going to university. That was freedom from the loan sharks forever. That was safety. But the cost. The absolute insanity of what he was asking. I need to think, she whispered, her voice shaking. I need time. Take your time. Kang Taehyun leaned back, suddenly looking even more exhausted, like this conversation had drained what little energy he had left. But not too much time. I don't have much left to give. Mara didn't sleep that night. She paced her tiny room, her mind racing through every possible outcome, every consequence, every angle. What he was asking was insane. Illegal probably. Definitely immoral by most standards. But was it really worse than what she'd already done to survive? Working illegal jobs under the table. Borrowing from criminals. Lying about her visa status. Living in constant fear. And the money. God, the money could change everything for her entire family. She thought about her father, still recovering, still weak. About her sisters studying by candlelight because they couldn't afford consistent electricity. About the loan shark's threats that kept her awake most nights. She thought about Kang Taehyun dying alone while his family celebrated, while everything he'd built crumbled. She thought about legacy, about giving someone peace before death, about the strange bond they'd formed over 3 months of forced intimacy. By morning, she'd made her decision. It was probably the wrong decision. It was definitely crazy. But she was saying yes anyway. Yes. Kang Taehyun looked up from his breakfast, his eyes searching hers with an intensity that made her want to look away. Yes, what? Yes, I'll do it. I'll help you. He set down his spoon slowly, carefully, like his hands might drop it otherwise. You're absolutely sure? You understand what this means? No, but I'm saying yes anyway. She took a deep breath. But I have conditions. Non-negotiable conditions. Tell me. Everything in writing. A legal contract that protects me and protects the child. Everything documented so nobody can claim I stole money or trapped you or whatever story they'll tell. And if anything happens to you before the money is transferred, it still goes through. I won't be left with nothing if you die early. Done. He nodded immediately. I'll have my private lawyer draw up the contract today. He's absolutely trustworthy. He's been with me for 20 years. And one more thing. She stepped closer, her voice dropping. When this is over, when the baby is born, I want to leave. Leave Korea, go somewhere safe. I don't want to stay here and be destroyed by your family. Already planned for. Kang Taehyun reached for her hand again. I have arrangements in London, in Singapore, in Toronto. You can choose. New identity if you want it. Complete protection. You and the child will be safe. I promise you, Mara. You won't regret this. But she already did. The regret started before the contract was even signed. The contract was signed in secret 5 days later. Kang Taehyun's private lawyer, a stern man named Park Dong-woo who'd clearly seen worse things in his career, witnessed everything without judgment or questions. 15 million won deposited into Mara's account immediately. She watched the numbers appear on her phone's banking app and wanted to cry. 70 million won to be held in trust, released when the child was born and verified through DNA testing. Protection clauses written in language she barely understood, but Park Dong-woo explained carefully. The affair itself was clinical, awkward, nothing like romance. Kang Tae-hyun was dying, his body barely functional, but somehow, impossibly, it worked. And then they waited. If you're still watching this, drop a comment right now telling me what you think Mara should have done. Was this survival or was this wrong? Hit that like button if you're invested in this story, because what happens next will shock you. 4 months later, Mara knew. The nausea hit first, violently. Every morning she'd rush to the bathroom and vomit until there was nothing left inside her. Then the exhaustion, the dizziness, the way certain smells made her stomach turn. She bought a pregnancy test from a pharmacy in Itaewon, somewhere far from the compound where nobody would recognize her. 2 lines. Positive. She stared at it for 15 minutes, her hands shaking uncontrollably. She was carrying the heir to the Biko syndicate. Mara told Kang Tae-hyun first, obviously. His reaction was everything she'd expected and feared simultaneously. Joy that looked almost painful. Relief so profound it brought tears streaming down his face. He gripped her hands with his trembling fingers and kept repeating, "Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mara. You've given me everything." "We don't know if it's a boy yet," she reminded him, trying to stay practical, trying not to get caught up in his emotion. "It is." His certainty was absolute, almost disturbing. "I know it is. This is fate, Mara. This child will save everything I built." She wanted to believe him, wanted his certainty to make her feel better. But then came the hard part. "When do we tell them?" she asked quietly, dreading the answer. Kang Tae-hyun's expression hardened, shifted into something cold and strategic. "Soon. Within the week. But we have to be extremely careful about this. My family will react badly." Badly felt like a massive understatement. "Will they hurt me?" "They'll try." His eyes met hers, suddenly fierce despite his weakness. "But I won't let them. I promise you, Mara. Nobody touches you while I'm alive. Nobody. And after you're gone?" Silence. They both knew the answer to that question, knew what happened when the protection died with the protector. Kang Tae-hyun called a family meeting 2 weeks later. Mara wasn't supposed to be present. She was told to stay in her room, out of sight, out of mind. But she could hear everything through the walls, every word carrying through the house's expensive architecture. Choi Hyejin's cold voice cut through first. "Why did you summon us, husband? If this is about changing treatment plans again?" "It's not about treatment." Kang Tae-hyun's voice was stronger than Mara had heard in weeks, like he'd summoned every last bit of strength for this moment. "It's about the future of the Biko syndicate." "What about it?" That was Min-ji, sounding bored and impatient. "I have an heir." Complete silence. Total, absolute silence. Then chaos erupted. "What are you talking about?" Choi Hyejin's voice cut through the noise like a blade through flesh. "I'm talking about a son. My son. My heir. The future head of the Biko syndicate." "That's impossible." Minji's voice was sharp, disbelieving. "You're dying. You can barely stand up. How could you possibly? And yet, here we are." There was something almost triumphant in his tone. "The child will be born in 5 months. A boy. The legitimate heir to everything I built." "Who's the mother?" So-yeon demanded, her voice shrill. Another pause. Mara held her breath. "Mara." The explosion was immediate and violent. "The maid?" That was So-yeon, shrieking. "You got that Nigerian woman pregnant? You've completely lost your mind. This is insane." Minji joined in, her voice rising. "How dare you do this to us? How dare you bring a bastard into this family?" Choi Hyejin's voice was pure venom, poisonous and cold. "That girl is nothing. She's a foreigner, a nobody with no family, no connections, no." Enough. Kang Tae-hyun's roar silenced everyone. Mara had never heard him that loud, that commanding, that absolutely in control despite his dying body. That woman has more honor in her little finger than all of you combined. She cared for me when you were counting my money and planning my funeral. She treated me like a human being when you were already dividing up my estate. And now she's carrying my son. The heir to everything I built. Everything. This is a joke. That was Jae-sung's voice, sharp and dismissive. You can't seriously expect the syndicate to accept some random African woman's child as the legitimate heir. The elders will never. I don't care what the elders think. Kang Tae-hyun cut him off. That child is my blood. My son. And when I die, everything goes to him. Not you, not my daughters, not my wife. Him. Only him. You can't do this. Minji was screaming now, all pretense of control gone. We're your family. Your daughters. We deserve. You deserve nothing. His voice dropped to something dangerous, something that reminded Mara he'd built an empire on violence. You've done nothing but wait for me to die like vultures waiting for the corpse to stop moving. But I'm not dead yet. And I'm making this very clear right now, crystal clear so there's no misunderstanding. If anything happens to Mara, if anyone in this family touches her, harms her, threatens her in any way whatsoever, I will cut you out of my will completely. Every single one of you. You'll get nothing. Absolutely nothing. Do you understand me? Nobody spoke. The silence was heavy, suffocating. Do you understand me? He repeated, his voice harder. Yes. It was Choi Hyejin, her voice like ice cracking. Good. This meeting is over. Get out of my sight. Mara heard footsteps, angry footsteps, doors slamming throughout the house. Then silence. She pressed her back against the wall, her hand on her stomach where life was growing, tears streaming down her face. What had they just done? What storm had they just unleashed? The next few weeks were suffocating, tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. Nobody spoke to Mara directly, but she felt their hatred everywhere she went. In the way Minji's eyes followed her with undisguised contempt. In how Choi Hyejin would smile coldly whenever they passed in the hallways, a smile that promised violence. In the whispers that stopped the instant she entered any room. Lee Sang-min started following her everywhere. Not obviously, but she noticed him always nearby, always watching, always alert. Boss's orders, he said when she finally asked him about it one evening. You don't go anywhere without me. Not the garden, not the kitchen, nowhere. Is it that bad? His expression told her everything she needed to know without words. Kang Tae-hyun grew more protective, more paranoid as the weeks passed. He made her eat every meal in his room, food he'd personally watched being prepared by staff he trusted absolutely. He had Lee Sang-min check her bedroom daily for cameras, for weapons, for anything suspicious. They're plotting, he told her one night, his voice grim. I can feel it. I know my family. They're just waiting for the right moment, waiting for me to be too weak to stop them. Then send me away now, Mara begged, fear clawing at her chest. Before it's too late. Before they do something we can't stop. Not yet. He shook his head, wincing at the pain the movement caused. It's too early. If you leave now before the pregnancy is further along, they might be able to track you down before the baby is born. They have resources everywhere. We need to wait until you're close to delivery, then we move fast. Get you out of the country before they can react. He was interrupted by a violent coughing fit. Blood flecked his lips, bright red against his pale skin. His time was running out faster than either of them wanted to admit. The thread started subtle at first, testing boundaries. A note left on her pillow written in Korean that she had to use her phone to translate. Leave while you still can walk. Her toiletries moved around, someone going through her things while she was with Kang Tae-hyun. A warning that they could reach her any time. Her clothes torn, slashed with something sharp. Accidentally, of course. The housekeeper apologized profusely, but Mara saw the lie in her eyes. Then it escalated quickly, dangerously. She found rat poison in her morning tea. Just a few grains, small enough to miss if you weren't looking carefully. But she was looking now. Always looking, always checking, always afraid. Lee Sang-min interrogated the kitchen staff, found nothing concrete. No proof. But they all knew. Everyone knew. They're testing you, Kang Tae-hyun said grimly when she showed him the tea. Seeing how far they can push before I retaliate. Seeing if I'm too weak to protect you anymore. And are you? Mara asked, hating herself for the question but needing to know. He didn't answer, which was answer enough. But it wasn't just the family Mara had to worry about anymore. Word had spread beyond the compound walls, traveling through Seoul's underworld like wildfire. Information always traveled fast in that world. The Biko syndicate's leader was dying, everyone knew that. He had no male heir, that was common knowledge. The succession was in chaos, the territory up for grabs. And now, suddenly, there was an heir. A pregnant foreign woman who could produce the next leader. Rival organizations saw opportunity dripping with blood and profit. If they eliminated her, the Biko syndicate would collapse into internal warfare. Kang Tae-hyun would die without an heir. The territory would fragment. Everything would be available for the taking. Mara became a target with a price on her head she didn't even know about. Kang Tae-hyun increased security dramatically. More guards patrolling the compound. More cameras installed overnight. He stopped letting her leave the compound at all, not even to the garden. It's not safe, he insisted when she protested about feeling trapped. The Jumgang faction knows about you now. The dragons are asking questions. Even some Yakuza groups are showing interest. You're the key to everything, Mara. If they take you, they take my legacy. They take everything. I'm trapped here, she whispered, feeling the walls closing in. You're protected here. He grabbed her hand with what little strength remained. Trust me, Mara. Just a little longer. Once we get you out of Korea, once you're safe in another country, they won't be able to touch you. The baby will be born somewhere they can't reach. Somewhere safe. Will you be alive to see that happen? She regretted the words immediately, but they hung in the air between them. He didn't answer. They both knew he wouldn't be. 5 months into the pregnancy, everything came to a head violently. Mara was walking through the garden in the early evening, Lee Sang-min 10 steps behind her as always, when she saw them. Min-ji and Jae-sung talking in harsh whispers near the koi pond, their voices carrying in the quiet air. They didn't see her approaching on the path. We can't wait any longer, Jae-sung was saying, his voice urgent and sharp. She's showing now, obviously pregnant. In a few more months the baby will be born and we'll lose everything we've worked for. Everything. What do you suggest? Min-ji's voice was cold, empty of any emotion that resembled human decency. An accident. A fall down the stairs. A miscarriage. There are ways to handle this without it looking suspicious. I have people who specialize in this kind of problem. My father will know immediately. He's not stupid. Your father is dying, Min-ji. In a month, maybe 6 weeks, he'll be gone. We just need to make sure that baby doesn't make it to term. Once the old man is dead, nobody will care what happened to some foreign maid. She'll disappear and everyone will forget she ever existed. Mara must have made a sound, a gasp or a step on gravel, because Lee Sang-min immediately moved in front of her, his hand going to his waistband where she knew he kept his gun. His entire body language shifted to something dangerous. Min-ji and Jae-sung spun around, their faces registering shock then calculation. For a moment, everyone just stared at each other, the tension so thick it felt solid. Then Jae-sung smiled, a predator's smile. You should be more careful, Mara. Pregnant women are so fragile. Anything could happen. A slip, a fall, a sudden complication. Tragic, really. Lee Sang-min took a step forward, his voice low and deadly. Try it. Please try it. See what happens to you. Jae-sung's smile widened. Are you threatening me? Do you know who I am? Who my family is? I know exactly who you are. Lee Sang-min's hand didn't move from his waistband. And I know the boss's orders. Anyone touches her, anyone threatens her, they disappear. Completely. No body, no questions, no investigation. Just gone. Want to test if I'm serious? The tension was suffocating, violent, ready to explode into bloodshed right there in the garden. Finally, Minji grabbed Jae-sung's arm hard. Let's go. This isn't the time. They left, but the message was crystal clear. Mara wasn't safe here anymore. Time was running out in multiple ways. Kang Taehyun made the decision that night. You're leaving tomorrow. No more delays. Mara had been expecting this, had packed mentally a dozen times, but hearing it still made her heart race with fear and relief mixed together. Where? Lee Sang-min will drive you to a private airstrip outside Seoul tomorrow night. My jet will take you to London. I have people there, people I trust absolutely, who will take care of you. Keep you safe until the baby is born. Set you up with everything you need. And after? Her voice broke on the word. After. He coughed, the sound wet and painful, blood staining the cloth he pressed to his mouth. After, you'll have more money than you could spend in 3 lifetimes. You'll never have to work again unless you want to. Your family will be taken care of forever. And my son will grow up safe, away from all this violence and darkness. Away from the syndicate. Will I ever see you again? She already knew the answer, but she needed to hear it. Kang Taehyun's eyes filled with tears, this powerful man reduced to crying openly. No. This is goodbye, Mara. She started crying too, and despite everything, despite the insanity of the situation and how wrong it all was, she'd grown to care about this dying man. He'd shown her kindness when no one else had. He'd protected her. He'd saved her in his own twisted way. He'd given her hope when she had none left. Thank you, she whispered through tears. For everything you've done for me and my family. No. He gripped her hand with trembling fingers that could barely hold on. Thank you. You gave me hope when I had nothing. You gave me a future when I thought I had none. You gave me peace in my final months. You gave me more than anyone else ever has. They sat there in the dim light of his bedroom, holding hands, both knowing this was goodbye, both knowing they'd probably never speak again. The silence between them said everything words couldn't. The next day was tense, every minute feeling like an hour. Kang Taehyun announced at breakfast to the family that he was sending Mara to a hospital in Seoul for prenatal checkups and tests. A lie, but believable enough. Choi Hye-jin barely reacted, like she couldn't be bothered to care. The daughters didn't even look up from their phones. But Mara saw Jae-sung's eyes narrow with suspicion. He suspected something, she could feel it. That afternoon, she packed a small bag with essentials. Lee Sang-min had already arranged everything else secretly. New passport with a different name. Money. Tickets. Documentation. Everything she needed to disappear completely. At 11 p.m., when the household was supposedly asleep, she crept out of her room as quietly as possible. Kang Taehyun was waiting in the hallway in his wheelchair, though he shouldn't have been out of bed at all. He'd insisted on seeing her off personally. Go, he whispered, his voice barely audible. And don't look back. Don't ever look back at this place. She bent down and kissed his forehead gently, tasting salt from tears she didn't know he'd been crying. Goodbye, Kang Taehyun. Thank you for everything. Goodbye, Mara. Take care of my son. Give him the life I never could have given him. Lee Sang-min appeared from the shadows like a ghost. We need to move now. The window is closing. They made it to the car without incident, a black sedan with tinted windows, engine already running, waiting at the back gate that was rarely used. Mara climbed in, her heart pounding so violently she thought it would burst through her chest. Lee Sang-min got behind the wheel and they pulled out onto the empty streets of Seoul, the city lights blurring past. The airstrip is about an hour outside the city, he said quietly, his eyes constantly checking the mirrors. Boss's jet is fueled and ready. Pilots have been paid extremely well to ask no questions. You'll be in London by morning, and this will all be behind you. She nodded, unable to speak, her hand resting protectively on her stomach where life was growing. Her son. Kang Taehyun's son. The future she was carrying. They drove in tense silence for about 25 minutes, the city giving way to suburbs, then darker roads leading out toward the countryside. That's when she saw them in the side mirror. Headlights. Two vehicles closing in fast, too fast to be coincidental. We have company. Lee Sang-min's voice was calm but his hands tightened on the steering wheel. Hold on tight. The SUVs accelerated aggressively, pulling up alongside them with practiced precision. Mara saw men inside through the tinted windows. Armed. Professional. This wasn't random. This was planned. Hold on. Lee Sang-min floored it. The sedan shot forward with surprising power, but the SUVs matched their speed easily. This wasn't going to be a chase. This was going to be a fight. One of the SUVs pulled ahead sharply, trying to cut them off, box them in. The other stayed on their tail, closing the trap. A classic pincer maneuver that Mara recognized from action movies but had never imagined experiencing. Get down now. Lee Sang-min shouted. Mara ducked just as the passenger window exploded inward. Gunfire. Loud, violent, terrifying. Bullets tore through the car, shattering glass, punching holes in metal, filling the air with the smell of gunpowder and fear. She screamed, covering her stomach with both hands, praying desperately that the baby was okay, that nothing would hurt her son. Lee Sang-min didn't slow down or hesitate. Instead, he yanked the wheel hard right, deliberately slamming their car into the SUV beside them. Metal crunched sickeningly. The SUV swerved wildly, losing control, crashing hard into the guardrail with a sound like an explosion. Sparks flew. One down. But the second SUV rammed them violently from behind. The impact was brutal. Mara's head snapped forward against the seat hard enough to see stars. Pain exploded in her neck and back. Almost there, Lee Sang-min muttered through gritted teeth. Just hold on a little longer. Almost there. More gunfire erupted from behind. The back windshield shattered completely, spraying safety glass everywhere like deadly rain. She felt something hot graze her arm, a line of fire. Blood. She was bleeding. I'm hit, she cried out, panic rising. How bad? Lee Sang-min didn't take his eyes off the road. She looked at her arm. A graze, bleeding but not deep. I don't know. It hurts. Can you move your arm? She tested it carefully. Pain, sharp pain, but it worked. Yes. Then you're fine. Stay down and stay quiet. Lee Sang-min took a sharp turn onto a smaller access road, tires screaming in protest. The SUV followed relentlessly, still firing, bullets tearing through their trunk, their doors, barely missing them by inches each time. Then she saw it ahead through the cracked windshield. A small airstrip. Runway lights cutting through the darkness like salvation. And there, waiting at the far end, a sleek white private jet. Engines already running, stairs down, ready for immediate departure. There. She pointed desperately. I see it. But the SUV was right on them, and now she could see more vehicles coming from another direction, at least 3 more, blocking the main road to the runway. They were surrounded. Trapped. Lee Sang-min made a split-second decision. He yanked the wheel hard, driving completely off-road, cutting straight across the grass field directly toward the jet. The car bounced violently over the rough, uneven terrain. Mara's head hit the ceiling hard. Her stomach lurched sickeningly. Please let the baby be okay, she prayed silently. Please. The SUV followed but it was heavier, slower on the rough ground, losing distance. When we stop, you run, Lee Sang-min ordered, his voice absolutely firm. Don't look back. Don't wait for me. Don't help me. Just get on that plane and get out of Korea. Understand? What about you? Mara asked, already knowing, already dreading the answer. I'll handle them. That's my job. Now promise me you'll run. I promise. They skidded to a stop maybe 20 meters from the jet, close enough. Lee Sang-min was out instantly, gun drawn, firing methodically at the pursuing vehicles before Mara even had her door open. The sounds were deafening. "Run," he screamed at her. "Now. Go." Mara scrambled out of the car, her legs shaking so badly she almost fell. The jet stairs were down. A flight attendant stood at the top, a woman in uniform, waving frantically with both arms. "Run," she screamed across the distance. "Run now." Mara ran. Her feet pounded across the tarmac, each step feeling like moving through water. Behind her, gunfire erupted like fireworks. Shouts in Korean. The sound of metal hitting metal, bodies hitting ground. She didn't look back. Couldn't look back. Had promised not to look back. 10 meters. 5 meters. She reached the stairs and started climbing as fast as her pregnant body would allow. That's when she heard Lee Sang-min scream, a sound of pure agony that cut through everything else. She turned reflexively. He was down on his knees, blood spreading across his chest like spilled ink. But his gun was still up, still firing with his remaining strength, buying her time even as he died. Buying her precious seconds with his life. Men were pouring out of the vehicles like ants from a disturbed nest. 6, 8, 10 of them, all armed, all running toward the jet with clear purpose. She saw one face she recognized even at this distance. Im Jae-sung. "Close the door," the flight attendant screamed at someone inside the plane. "Go, go, go." Strong hands grabbed Mara roughly, pulling her inside the jet. The door slammed shut with a mechanical thunk. Locks engaged with solid clicks. Through the window, she watched helplessly as Lee Sang-min collapsed completely, his body going still. Watched as the men reached his body. Watched as Im Jae-sung, that bastard, kicked him once viciously, then turned toward the jet with murder in his eyes. He raised his gun. Bullets hit the fuselage with metallic pings. The jet was moving now, engines screaming at full power, starting to taxi down the runway faster and faster. More bullets hit them. One shattered a window 2 rows behind where Mara stood frozen. The flight attendant tackled her to the floor hard, covering her body. "Stay down. Stay down." The jet accelerated, faster, faster, the world blurring past. The men were chasing on foot now, still firing desperately, but they were pulling away, distance growing. Then that beautiful, impossible moment when physics worked in their favor. The wheels left the ground. They were airborne. They were free. They were safe. Mara lay on the floor of the jet, shaking so violently her teeth chattered. The flight attendant, a Korean woman maybe in her 30s, helped her gently into a proper seat. "Are you hurt?" she asked in perfect English, her voice calm and professional. Mara looked at her arm where the bullet had grazed her. Still bleeding but not seriously. "The baby," she gasped. "Is the baby okay? We have a doctor on board. He'll check you thoroughly. But first, let me stop this bleeding." She worked quickly and efficiently, cleaning the wound with practiced movements, bandaging it properly. Her hands were steady, completely calm, like this wasn't her first emergency situation. Like she'd done this before. "Who are you?" Mara asked through tears and shock. Someone Mr. Kong trusted absolutely. She secured the bandage with tape. "My name is Han Ji-won. I've been working for him for 17 years. He told me everything about what was happening. Asked me personally to make sure you got to London safely. That was my only mission tonight." Lee Sang-min. Mara's voice broke completely. Han Ji-won's face darkened with genuine grief. "I saw. I'm sorry. He was a good man. The best. He died protecting you and the baby. That's what mattered most to him." Tears streamed down Mara's face uncontrollably, hot and painful. That man, that loyal, brave man who barely knew her, had died to protect her. To protect this baby. To fulfill a promise to a dying boss he'd served for years. The doctor arrived moments later, a calm older man who checked her thoroughly. Heartbeat, blood pressure, examined her arm wound, felt her stomach gently. The baby is fine, he announced finally. Strong heartbeat. No signs of distress. Your heart rate is extremely elevated and you're in shock, but physically you'll both survive this. He gave her something to help her calm down, some medication he assured her was safe for pregnancy. You need to rest now, he said firmly. No more stress. No more running. The next few months are absolutely critical for the baby's development. Mara was given a private cabin in the back of the jet, luxury she'd never experienced in her entire life. A real bed, a private bathroom, everything she could possibly need. Han Ji-won brought her food, but she couldn't eat, couldn't do anything but stare at the wall replaying everything. Kang Tae-hyun's face when she'd kissed him goodbye. Lee Sang-min collapsing in that pool of blood. Im Jae-sung's cold eyes as he'd fired at the plane. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She'd completely forgotten she still had it. A message notification. From Kang Tae-hyun. Her hands shook as she opened it. If you're reading this, you made it out. I knew you would. You're stronger than you know, Mara. Stronger than all of them combined. By the time you reach London, I'll probably be gone. The tumor is winning fast now. I can feel it taking over. But I'm not afraid anymore. You gave me peace. You gave me hope when I had none. You gave me a son, a legacy, a future. In London, my lawyer will contact you within hours. Everything is arranged perfectly. Money, protection, legal documents for the baby. You'll never have to worry about survival again. But I need you to promise me something important. When my son is old enough to understand, tell him about me. Not the monster everyone feared. Not the criminal who built an empire on blood. Tell him about the man who loved him before he was even born. The man who gave everything to make sure he'd have a chance at a real life. Tell him his father died protecting him. Thank you, Mara, for everything you gave me. For treating me like a human being when everyone else treated me like a dying bank account. Park Kang Tae-hyun. She read it 3 times through tears that blurred the words. Then she typed a reply with shaking fingers, knowing he might never read it, knowing it might be too late. I promise. I'll tell him everything about you. The good parts. The human parts. Thank you for saving us. Rest in peace now. She pressed send. The message showed as delivered. Then, 30 seconds later, it showed as read. 30 seconds after that, another message came through, just 2 words. Goodbye, Mara. That was the last time she ever heard from Kang Tae-hyun. Those were his final words to her. They landed in London 14 hours later, the morning grey and drizzly. A woman in an expensive designer suit met Mara at the private terminal, professional and efficient. Ms. Adeyemi, I'm attorney Young Sunmi. Welcome to London. How are you feeling? Exhausted. Terrified. Alive somehow. She nodded sympathetically, like she'd expected that answer. We have a car waiting. It will take you to your apartment in Kensington. Fully furnished, completely paid for. You'll have everything you need for the pregnancy and beyond. And Kang Tae-hyun? Mara had to ask, had to know. Attorney Young's expression softened with genuine sadness. He passed away early this morning, Korean time. About 4 hours ago. Peacefully, according to his medical team. He went in his sleep. The words hit Mara like a physical blow even though she'd been expecting them. He was really gone. The man who'd changed her entire life in 6 impossible months. Gone. His will is being executed as we speak, Attorney Young continued as they walked through the private terminal. 75% of his entire estate goes into a trust for your son. The remaining 25% is split between his wife and daughters with very specific legal stipulations attached. What kind of stipulations? They cannot contest the will under any circumstances. They cannot make any claim whatsoever on the trust or the baby. They cannot attempt to contact you or the child ever. If they violate any of these terms even once, they lose everything they inherited. Everyone. Will that actually stop them? Attorney Young's smile was thin and professional. It will slow them down significantly. Mr. Kong was extremely thorough in his planning. He anticipated every move they might make and blocked it legally years in advance. But... She hesitated. But what? But they're dangerous people with dangerous connections. Legal barriers won't stop them forever. You need to be very careful. Always vigilant. If you've made it this far in the story, you're truly invested. Hit that subscribe button right now because you need to know what happens next. This story isn't over yet. They reached the car, a sleek black Mercedes with tinted windows. There's one more thing, Attorney Young said, handing her a thick envelope sealed with red wax. Mr. Kong asked me to give this to you after the baby was born originally. But given everything that happened last night, given what you went through, I think you should have it now. Mara took the envelope, heavy in her hands. What is it? I don't know. He sealed it himself personally. Said it was for your eyes only. Private. She slid it carefully into her bag, too emotionally and physically exhausted to open it now. The drive to Kensington was quiet, London looking grey and cold and so different from Seoul's neon chaos and violence. But it was beautiful in its own way. Safe. Anonymous. A place to disappear. The apartment was on the 4th floor of a beautiful Victorian building, elegant and spacious with high ceilings and large windows overlooking a quiet tree-lined street. The rent is paid for the next 5 years in advance, Attorney Young explained as they toured it. There's a bank account in your new name with 70 million won, about £45,000, for immediate living expenses and medical costs. More will be transferred monthly automatically. When the baby is born and paternity is confirmed through DNA testing, the main trust will be activated. That's when the real money transfers. And if something happens to me before then? The trust passes directly to your son with guardianship assigned to trustees Mr. Kong selected personally. People he trusted with his life. Your child will be protected no matter what happens. That was his absolute priority. She handed Mara a set of keys and a small electronic device. There's one more thing. Mr. Kong arranged for private security. 2 highly trained guards will be monitoring this building 24 hours a day, every day. You won't see them, but they're there. Always watching. If you need anything, if you sense any danger at all, press this button. She indicated the device. Press it once for immediate help. Press it twice for emergency evacuation. They'll get you out within 3 minutes. Mara stared at the device, this small piece of plastic and electronics. Even in death, Kang Tae-hyun was protecting her. Protecting their son. Thank you, she whispered. Attorney Young's expression softened genuinely. He cared about you very much. More than I ever saw him care about anyone in 20 years of working for him. You gave him something precious in his final months. You gave him peace and hope. That's worth more than money. She left, and Mara was finally alone. Truly alone for the first time in months. She walked through the apartment slowly, taking in every detail. The bedroom with its enormous comfortable bed. The kitchen fully stocked with food. The nursery already completely set up with a crib, changing table, everything a baby could possibly need. Kang Tae-hyun had thought of absolutely everything. She sank onto the sofa, finally letting herself break down completely. Sobbing for the man who'd died protecting her. For Lee Sang-min who'd sacrificed his life so she could escape. For the absolute insanity and violence of the last 6 months. But also crying from relief, from exhaustion, from the overwhelming realization that she was safe. Her baby was safe. They'd survived. After a long while, she remembered the envelope Attorney Young had given her. She opened it carefully, breaking the red wax seal. Inside was a letter handwritten in neat Korean characters, and a photograph. The photograph showed a young Kang Tae-hyun, maybe in his early 20s, impossibly handsome, smiling genuinely, full of life and hope. Before the violence. Before the syndicate. Before the sickness. Before everything that had made him hard. On the back, he'd written in English, "For my son." So he knows his father was once young and full of dreams too. The letter was longer, written in Korean that she translated slowly with her phone. Dear Mara, if you're reading this, I am gone. And I hope desperately that means you and our son are safe somewhere far from Korea. I don't expect forgiveness for what I asked of you. I know it was selfish. I know it was unfair. I know it was insane. But I want you to understand why I did it. My father was a violent man who built the Biko syndicate through blood and fear and ruthlessness. When he died, he left me nothing but enemies and debts and expectations. I spent my entire adult life fighting, killing, becoming the monster everyone expected me to be. I told myself it was for legacy, for family, for honor. But the truth is, I was just terrified. Terrified of being forgotten. Terrified of dying alone. Terrified that my entire life meant absolutely nothing. Then you came into my house. This young woman from Nigeria who had every reason to hate me, to fear me, to run as far as possible. But instead you stayed. You cared for me like I was human. You treated me with genuine kindness that had no agenda, no calculation, no fear. Just pure human kindness. That's when I knew. If I could have a son, and if that son could be raised by someone like you, maybe he'd have a chance to be better than me. To break the cycle of violence. To choose a different path than I did. I'm not asking you to raise him to be a gangster. I'm not asking you to force him into this life. When he's old enough to understand, tell him the truth. Tell him about the Biko syndicate, about his inheritance, about everything. Then let him choose his own path. If he wants to walk away, to live a normal peaceful life far from all this darkness, I will be proud of him from whatever comes after death. If he wants to reclaim what's his, to rebuild the syndicate into something better than I made it, something with honor, I will be proud of that too. Either way, he will be free to choose. Something I never was. Take care of yourself, Mara. Take care of our son. And know that in the end, you were the best thing that ever happened to me in my entire life. With eternal gratitude and respect, Kang Tae-hyun. P.S. There's a safety deposit box at Couts Bank on the Strand. Box number 7743. The key is taped to the back of the photograph. Inside is something for you and something for our son when he's older. I trust you'll know when the time is right to open it. She flipped the photograph over carefully. Sure enough, a small brass key was taped there. She held the letter and the photograph, crying again, this complicated grief for a complicated man. This violent, dying man who'd given her everything. A future. Safety. Choice. Freedom. And she'd given him peace in his final months. A legacy. Hope. 4 months later, on a rainy London afternoon, the contractions started at 2 in the morning. Mara was alone in the apartment, but she pressed the emergency button Attorney Young had given her. Within 4 minutes, a doctor and nurse arrived at her door. Within 8 minutes, she was in a car heading to a private hospital. Everything Kang Tae-hyun had promised. Everything arranged perfectly. The labor was long, 36 hours of pain and exhaustion and fear. But at 3:47 in the afternoon, she gave birth to a healthy baby boy. He came out screaming, red-faced, absolutely perfect. Congratulations, the doctor said, placing him on her chest gently. He's beautiful and completely healthy. She looked down at her son. Kang Tae-hyun's son. Their son. He had his father's eyes, sharp and intelligent, already looking at the world with curiosity and alertness. What will you name him? The nurse asked. She'd thought about this for months, going through options, considering meanings. Taejun, she said softly, her voice thick with emotion. His name is Kang Taejun. It means great and talented. He'll be everything his father hoped. Little Taejun grabbed her finger with his tiny hand, gripping with surprising strength, and she felt something break open inside her chest. All the fear, all the trauma, all the impossibility of the last year suddenly made sense. This was why. This beautiful, innocent life. This hope. Welcome to the world, Taejun, she whispered, tears falling on his tiny face. Your father loved you so much. Even before you existed, even before you were born, he loved you more than anything. Want to know what happens next? Will Taejun grow up to reclaim his father's empire and return to Seoul as the rightful heir to the Biko syndicate? Or will he choose the peaceful life his mother built in London, walking away from violence and blood? Can a boy raised in kindness and love survive in a world built on fear and ruthlessness? Hit that subscribe button right now because this story isn't over. Drop a comment telling me, should Taejun return to Korea to claim his birthright, or should he stay in London and live a normal life? What would you do in his position? And smash that like button if this story kept you on the edge of your seat. Share it with someone who loves real stories about survival, legacy, and impossible choices. Because Mara and Taejun's journey is just beginning, and you won't want to miss what comes next.